Good evening and welcome to our Almaden Dam Improvement Project, Calero Dam Seismic Retrofit Project, and Guadalupe Dam Seismic Retrofit Project public meeting. This meeting is being recorded for anyone who couldn't participate or who wants to view it over and over again later on. The link to the video will be available on the Dams and Reservoirs webpage and the Valley Water YouTube channel. For our online audience, please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen instead of the chat box to ask questions or to raise your hand, your virtual hand to speak. Staff will respond to your questions at the end of the presentation. Today we will learn about the three projects and their timelines and give you the opportunity to ask questions. I want to acknowledge the Valley Water Board of Directors joining us tonight. We have with us Director Jim Bell and Vice Chair Richard Santos, who will be coming up and saying a few words. Vice Chair Santos was first elected in 2000 to serve on Valley Water's board and represents District 3, which includes portions of the cities of Sunnyvale, Santa Clara, Alviso, Milpitas, Berryessa, and Alum Rock communities. He's a native of Alviso, served our community as a firefighter and fire captain for many years. Welcome, please, Director Richard Santos.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Santa Clara Valley Water District. I am Richard Santos, your Director of Santa Clara Valley Water District. Thank you, Mike. I'm glad to see everyone who has joined us tonight to receive progress update on 3 of our dams. We own about 10 of them, so right now we're working on all of them. The safety maintenance of our dams are critical to Valley Water's work. These dams can hold a combined 15,000 acre-feet of water, or enough to provide 150,000 people with drinking water for 1 year. These dams also provide groundwater recharge for wildlife, vegetation, in some cases, in a lot of cases, it's flood protection. And don't forget firefighting right now in Los Angeles. That's why our staff is working hard to make sure those issues don't happen here, that we have safe dams. So if we do have a major fire, we can help provide reliable water. These dams were built in the 1930s under different design and construction guidelines. And now they need repairs and improved to maintain them to current safety standards. Our Valley Water staff will explain the repairs and improvements we plan to make in the timeline. Please ask questions. We hope you'll see you at your future meetings as we progress through these projects at different stages and start construction. I really want to take the time to make sure you people know I have all the confidence in the role of our staff to make sure these dams are safe and that what occurs in other places doesn't happen here. They do a great job and I'm very satisfied. So thank you for listening and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Santos. Great to hear from you. For today's presentation, we have Ryan McCarter, the Deputy Operating Officer for Valley Water's Dam Safety and Capital Delivery Division. Ryan will first give an overview of the dam safety program and why we are working on these 3 dams. We'll then hear the presentation from Andrew Garcia, Assistant Officer for the Dam Safety and Capital Delivery Division. To our Zoom audience, remember to enter your questions in the Q&A box or raise your virtual hand and we'll unmute you so you can ask your question after the presentations. And for now, we'd like to bring up Ryan. The floor is yours.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Good evening, everybody. I'm Ryan McCarter, Deputy Operating Officer of the Dam Safety and Capital Delivery Division. So we have a pretty short presentation to give you all tonight about 3 of our very important dams in our system here that we're going to focus on tonight: the Guadalupe Dam, the Almaden Dam, and the Calero Dam. So you can see here on this cover slide, we are at Valley Water HQ, the star there, and that's at Blossom Hill and Almaden Expressway. And what you can see if you look really closely, that all 3 of these dams, the creeks flow right into this general area here. And what that means is this is really the beginning of the Guadalupe River. So we call these 3 dams our Guadalupe River watersheds, reservoirs and dams, and they really do feed that river and supply a lot of the water that runs through all the way out to the San Francisco Bay. Now there is a 4th dam not shown here, Lexington, Lenahan Dam, that does also end up flowing into Guadalupe River through Los Gatos Creek. So just want to give some context of the geography here and where we're at now. Okay. All right, so just a quick agenda of what we're going to go over tonight. I'll give some brief introductions of the project team that's here tonight. And then Andrew Garcia will come up and give the project updates and talk about the next steps for these 3 projects. And then we'll do some questions. So Andrew Garcia is here. He'll be coming up next. We also have Hossein Morshedian, one of the project managers of the projects we'll be talking about tonight, as well as Bal Ganju, another project manager. And they're both engineers working on these projects. And then we also have Abby Anacarrico, who's our environmental planner for these projects. So we've got a great staff here in our Dam Safety and Capital Delivery Division to help answer all the hard questions. So just a quick overview of our water district. I'm going to focus on the dams and reservoirs. So this map kind of shows our entire system, shows all of the reservoirs in blue, the pipelines in orange, drinking water pipelines in green, so you can kind of get a feel for this whole system and how it runs throughout our county from south to north. So focusing on the 10 reservoirs and dams, we do have 10 in our system, and currently 5 of them are under restriction, which means we can't put all of the water we want in them. We can't fill them up to full capacity. And so 3 of those dams are what we're talking about tonight, and those are why they are a priority for us to repair, so we can lift those restrictions. And where those restrictions come from is through the California Department of Water Resources Division of Safety of Dams, and we'll call that DSOD for short many times throughout this presentation. But that's who really works with us to determine these restrictions for safety purposes, so that we can make sure we don't have too full of a reservoir in case there's some sort of emergency event that there'd be problems downstream. So we're here to not talk about Anderson tonight. Everyone's heard plenty about that project, and that is one of our main reservoirs, our largest reservoir and dam, and that does have a restriction on it, but as well as the 3 that we'll be talking about tonight have restrictions on them as well. We are prioritizing Calero as our next project to tackle, because if you look closely at this figure, you can see that it is connected by this orange raw water pipeline. So besides Anderson, Calero is the only other reservoir that we can pump water into to store and take water out through a pipeline system and send to our drinking water treatment plants and use that water for distribution throughout the system. So it's really important that we get Calero Reservoir back up, and so we can use its full capacity, because it's currently restricted at about 50%. So we can only use half of that 10,000 acre foot reservoir. So that's a pretty drastic amount of water that we can't store and access there. Okay, so I'm going to introduce Andrew Garcia, Assistant Officer of the Dam Safety and Capital Delivery Division, to talk about the 3 projects here coming up next. Andrew?
Thank you, Ryan. As Ryan mentioned, I'm Andrew Garcia, Assistant Officer of the Dam Safety and Capital Delivery Division, and I will be walking through the finer details of each of these 3 projects in the Guadalupe watershed. So we'll start with Calero Dam Seismic Retrofit Project, as Ryan just mentioned, the priority project for us, followed by Guadalupe Dam Seismic Retrofit Project, and then Almaden Dam Improvement Project. And the 2 pictures here for Calero and Guadalupe are shown maybe in a bit of a drier season, but you'll see what these reservoirs look like in the winter when they're much more full in some of the subsequent slides. So we wanted to start by talking about the dam safety program priorities. Ryan mentioned our work with the Division of Safety of Dams and how we coordinate with them to be responsible dam owners. Right, so Valley Water's mission is to deliver clean, safe drinking water. And what does that mean for the dam safety program? That means responsible dam ownership and refurbishing, retrofitting, and maintaining our infrastructure. The focus is the safety of people and properties, and of course, having the safe, reliable water supply, as Ryan mentioned. These reservoirs are vital for groundwater recharge, but also distribution to our raw water treatment plant. So what we want to focus on for these projects is how do we get them with the restrictions lifted quicker than maybe we had originally planned. We had received a letter from DSOD, who we coordinate with, about expediting these projects, and they're working with us on Anderson, as Ryan mentioned. So we took a look at our schedule with our engineering team and consultants and have come up with a new approach of how to tackle these 3 projects. So first, with Calero and Guadalupe, what we'll be focusing on is the dam embankment seismic deficiencies, as well as repairs or replacements for both the spillway and outlet works. For Almaden Dam, what that entails is spillway replacement and outlet works, either replacement or modifications. And as I mentioned, as we work on these projects, both the planning and design, we'll be coordinating regularly, continue to coordinate with Division of Safety of Dams. They are supportive of our strategy and our implementation plan for each of these projects. So this is another view of what Ryan was talking about for the Guadalupe watershed. This helps orient you as well to Valley Water's HQ, as well as Alamitos Creek, Calero Creek, and Guadalupe Creek. And you can even see here, if you look at the center of the screen, where a majority of our recharge ponds are in the watershed and how each of these reservoirs act as a system. We wanted to zoom in here on what's labeled as the AC canal, the Almaden Calero Canal. Our operations can move water from Almaden Reservoir to Calero Reservoir to best utilize our treatment plants, as I mentioned previously. So it's vital for us to have Calero be a priority so that we can continue to maximize the water supply from Almaden over to Calero and back up our treatment plant system while Anderson construction is underway. So zooming in a bit on Calero Dam, again, as I mentioned, this is a much greener picture with a nice full reservoir. This dam was built in 1935, about 98 feet tall and 840 feet long. We hold about 10,000 acre feet of capacity, when it's full, and the restriction currently is at 46%, as Ryan mentioned. The engineer's estimate for the seismic retrofits, the spillway replacement, and the outlet work improvements is approximately $185 million. So the objectives, as I mentioned, for the Calero Dam seismic retrofit project are, for the first phase, the stabilization of the dam embankment to withstand the max credible earthquake, or what the largest earthquake that we would expect in the area. Spillway improvements, so constructing a new spillway to pass the probable maximum flood, or again, the largest flood that you could expect in the area that we would anticipate and be designing for. And one unique feature about the Calero project is there is a historic structure located on the southeast portion of the reservoir rim called the Bailey House that we would be moving west after we breach a small dike near that house to move it out of the inundation zone. Some other small safety enhancements include a slight raise to the crest height, as well as a filter and blanket drain to bring the dam design up to current safety standards. And one thing I wanted to mention here is this phased concept that you're seeing on the screen. So what we're showing is a first phase and a second phase. So previously we had envisioned these construction activities to occur all under one phase. But as we looked at how could we best expedite the construction, how can we do work without blowing the reservoir, we can focus on the embankment and the spillway and everything on the downstream edge of the embankment rather than the piping system itself. So what it looks like now is prioritizing work that won't be in the water, so we can actually keep water in the reservoir and not impact feeding our treatment plants and the downstream creeks. So that's a big shift that's really important for us to focus on here, is that we can separate some of the scope of work and get started on some of the embankment features and the spillway sooner. So zooming in more, so you can actually see where each of these project components are located. I don't have a laser pointer, but you can see here the embankment on the left side of the picture, where there will be some downstream improvements to the dam face, the spillway to the right of that on the right abutment, and further to the right, there is a small auxiliary dam that will have some retrofit and improvement work done as well. And as I mentioned before, on the bottom right there, the southeast corner, that's the Bailey House and Fellows Dike. You can see labeled there, and there's a picture of the historic structure, which will be moved slightly west. We also have an image here, an example that's not an existing structure, but that's an example of what a sloping intake structure would look like, and that's what is being conceptualized for the new intake structure for Calero. So the status of the Calero Dam seismic retrofit project, planning phase has been completed. We do expect this summer the phase 1 engineering design to be complete for the embankment and the spillway. And most importantly, for folks who are listening in or are wanting to have another opportunity to participate and comment on the project, is we do expect to release a draft EIR, or environmental impact report, this summer. And finally, the plan for construction after we get through the environmental and permitting process, as well as the design process, would be to start construction in spring of 2028. And I had posed this question here of why is Calero the priority, but I think Ryan and I have sort of touched on that, the interconnection to our treatment plants, as well as the large storage capacity. So really it is the priority project for us. So moving on to Guadalupe Dam. This dam was built subsequent year, built in 1936. It's around 130 feet tall, 650 feet long, and has about 1/3 of the capacity of Calero, or 3,415 acre feet. The current restriction for the operating level is 65% of its full capacity. And for the seismic retrofit work, spillway replacement, and the outlet work improvements, our current engineer's estimate is $140 million. So similar to Calero, Guadalupe Dam project, the objectives are to stabilize the dam embankment, improve the spillway, and expand the capacity of the spillway for the probable maximum flood, as well as replace or modify the outlet works and intake system and other small safety features. This also is envisioned as being phased construction so that we can start construction sooner and hopefully get a jump on getting ahead of the inflation costs that we see on so many of our large capital projects. This image also shows some of the project components. One key thing we wanted to point out here is the dam embankment footprint. So the black dashed line shows the current existing extents of the embankment, and the yellow line there shows the embankment, future embankment buttress footprint. So it would be slightly larger. We also wanted to point out some of the other small features like the bridges that will need to be improved or constructed, slight roadway realignments, and then the sloping intake and intake structure on the left abutment. The project status for the Guadalupe Dam seismic retrofit project, similar to Calero, the planning phase has been completed, and we expect 60% design on phase 1 work for the embankment and spillway to be completed this summer as well. The environmental documentation will be pushed a year further as we worked with our partners at Division of Safety of Dams and internally here looking at our resources on these large undertakings of developing draft documents. It just made sense to push it out so that our regulatory partners had the resources and time to review the Calero document first, followed by the Guadalupe document. So we're staggering those a bit by a year. And what that means for construction is we likely would start, and we're planning for construction to start in 2029. And last, but certainly not least, here's a photo of Almaden Dam, again, nice and full and green. This dam was built in 1935. So 3 projects within, a year and a half, 2 years of one another. And here we are again, 95 years later, looking at working on all 3 dams at the same time. So we're going to be just as busy as they were back then. This dam is about 110 feet tall, 500 feet long, and is substantially smaller than the others. It's just south of 1,600 acre feet, and it has a smaller restriction to 95% of its capacity. The current estimate for the intake structure and spillway improvements is approximately $40 million. The objectives for the Almaden Dam Improvement Project, as I mentioned, the embankment has been deemed structurally sound, so we will not be doing large embankment work as we will on the other 2 projects. We are anticipating replacing the outlet works or modifying the outlet works and intake structure, as well as the downstream energy dissipation structure. We will also be looking at improving and constructing a new spillway to pass the probable maximum flood and expanding the capacity there. And finally, some other small features, and it also incorporating a blanket drain and a small crest height raise. So a final look here, a bird's eye view of Almaden Dam Improvement Project and the different project components. On the left abutment, we're looking at the road edge and slightly raising the road, as well as on the right abutment here, looking at the spillway modifications and the lengthening of the weir to expand the capacity there. And finally, the sloping intake structure shown in blue, as well as the limited dam crest raise there on top. So the status of this project, it's a little bit further behind the other two. Planning phase is nearly complete. We're at approximately 90% phase for planning, and project design commenced this year. We do expect the inlet structure and spillway design to be 50% complete by the summer of next year. And the environmental documentation will be pushed a little bit further out. We're looking at 2029 for that. And construction is expected to start the following year. So we put together this nifty table. We don't expect everybody to read it all at once, and I'm not going to read it to you, but we did want to have, this will be a good reference document to look back and look to see when those draft environmental impact reports are coming out, when we expect construction to start, how long we expect construction to take, 3 years approximately for Calero, 3 years approximately for Guadalupe, and 1 year less, or approximately 2 years for Almaden Dam. So this will be a good reference document for folks who are interested to see when the public comment periods might open, when the EIR might be released, and of course, most importantly, when will construction likely start. So with that, that's a quick run through of what the project components are and how we're looking at each of these three projects. What can you do next? The next thing we wanted to recommend is continue to stay involved. The Calero project, as I mentioned previously, we are looking at releasing that draft environmental impact report this summer. There will be a public comment period where members of the public will have an opportunity to comment and come and work with us to incorporate any comments or concerns on that. So please do that. Also, there's a couple web links here for project updates. The top link is the specific web link for the individual project pages for each of these three projects. And the bottom link is the more general projects or more general web page for things like inundation maps and just general dams and reservoir information. And of course, if you wanted to reach out to Valley Water with any questions or concerns, we have staff contact information. Jose will be able to put you in contact with the correct folks to be able to answer any questions you may have. So with that, we're happy to stick around and answer any questions. Mike?
Thank you, Andrew and Ryan, for those presentations. And now we're eager to take your questions about the presentations you just saw. This presentation, though, is available on the Dams and Reservoirs webpage already. So if you'd like to look at that, you're able to as well. Let's see if we have any questions in the room. Seeing Jose, maybe we have a few on Zoom. If you want to raise your hand or put it in the Q&A box on Zoom, or you can raise your virtual hand.
I do have a question here.
Good.
The questions are, what are some of the regulatory agency permits that the project will need, and how long does it take to secure them?
Come on down. We have just the expert to answer that question.
Hi there, I'm Abby. I'm the planner on the Calero and the Guadalupe Dam projects. So we're going to be getting permits from all the agencies that we normally work with. So that's going to be the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Army Corps of Engineers, the San Francisco Regional Water Quality Control Board, Santa Clara Valley Habitat Agency, National Marine Fisheries Service, and the Santa Clara County Parks. And all those permits take, I would say, from like 9 months to a year to acquire. So we're currently focusing on, like Ryan and Andrew mentioned, the Calero project. So the draft permits for that project, we're hoping to submit by the end of this year to the agencies, and then we're hoping to have final permits issued by the end of next year.
Thank you for that answer. And I'm very impressed that you were able to remember each of those agencies without looking at your notes. Not jealous at all. Jose, do we have another question online or?
Question here. You mentioned Santa Clara County Parks. Are you coordinating with Santa Clara County Parks? And will recreation be impacted?
Great question. come on down.
Coming back. Yes, we are currently having coordination meetings with Santa Clara County Parks. We are trying to limit impacts to recreational uses as much as possible. But the reality is there will be very likely some impacts to recreational uses. But again, we are trying to minimize those to the extent that we can.
Great, thank you very much. Any virtual hands raised? This is your chance, or in the Q&A box, Jose?
There's a question here. You mentioned Fellows Dike. Why is it necessary to breach the dike?
Why is it necessary to breach the dike? Breach the dike.
Yeah, excellent question. Thanks for that question. So if you, maybe we can actually go back. Quickest here. But it is helpful to see where. So Fellows Dike, you could see there on the bottom right of that image, just north of the Bailey House. So this reservoir is lower, but if you imagine the reservoir being more full or near the top, every reservoir gets it's a conical shape, right? So it pinches out near the bottom and gets wider as you get a higher elevation. So that last couple feet where Fellows Dike is actually a substantial amount of the water supply and storage in the reservoir. So that couple feet that we lose by not raising the water level as high, we lose out on a lot of our storage. And also in coordination with the Division of Safety of Dams, they've deemed that this dike has issues as well. So rather than trying to retrofit the dike and make that safe, it's more cost effective, better overall for the project to move the Bailey House and breach the dike.
Thank you for that response, Andrew. Jose?
Here's another question. How can I receive future updates or information about meetings related to these projects? You mentioned that there's a draft EIR meeting coming up potentially in the summer.
Great question. I think I can even help with this one. At the very end, it had the community liaison, Jose Villarreal. You can send him an email and sign up, or you can just register on the project webpage, and you will receive updated information as well. You can click on just this project or other projects as well when you go to that link. Great question, though.
Great.
Do we have any other questions coming in, Jose? It seems like we might be nearing the end of our community questions.
Okay. So another question here. Is the water stored in these reservoirs from local rain runoff, or is it coming in from other areas?
I think we've got Ryan to answer that question.
Yeah, so each of these reservoirs is somewhat unique, but primarily, yeah, they are storing water from rain, from the watersheds that they hold, impound the reservoirs behind. But like I mentioned previously, the Calero reservoir is actually connected to a pipeline, so we actually can put imported water from the San Luis Reservoir, pumped all the way through South County and Gilroy into Calero Reservoir and store it there. So that's one reservoir that we can actually add imported water that's not from natural rain.
And then they all have a bit of a watershed, so some of that is local runoff, but primarily imported. Okay, great. Jose, how are we doing?
No questions in the chat
Okay,
yet.
none in the chat. Okay, this is your chance. Ask a question. If not, we want to be respectful of your time and know that you'll be able to come back and rewatch this presentation over and over. In the next few days, we'll be posting a recording of today's meeting on the Valley Water Dams and Reservoirs webpage. And our next set of meetings will be for the draft EIR environmental impact reports for Calero Dam, followed by Guadalupe Dam. And you can sign up again to receive that information on our webpage. We appreciate, thank you all for making time to participate in this public meeting, and have a great night.